Princess Diana's legacy still shapes the monarchy decades after her passing. Now the discovery of a letter she wrote to Princess Anne has reignited interest in her private struggles. Its contents remain unknown, but its existence alone speaks volumes. Why did Diana write to Anne? Why was the letter hidden for so long? And what does its discovery reveal about the royal family when it came to Diana's private correspondence? Buckingham Palace had remained ENT for years in the past. A number of her letters to confidants and close friends have been made public, offering insight into her difficulties inside the royal establishment. This letter, however, was unique. It was sent to the Queen's only daughter, Princess Anne, and it left more questions than answers. Diana had never been close to this woman. So what had she written to her, and why hadn't Anne, who was renowned for her prudence, brought it up? The interest was only heightened by the revelations. Timeliness, the resurgence of Diana's remarks rekindled a long-running controversy concerning the monarchy's treatment of its most vulnerable members during a time when the royal family was being scrutinized more and more, and its applicability in the contemporary world was being discussed. Known for taking her responsibilities seriously, Anne had hardly ever participated in public debates on Diana's legacy as one of the most diligent members of the royal family. She had never complained about her engagements and hardly ever sought attention. She had never been involved in issues stoked by the media. Unlike her brothers, her choice to respond to the letter at this particular moment sparked rumors that after all these years, she had finally made up her mind to address Diana's remarks. It was necessary to reflect on Diana and Anne's complicated relationship in order to fully comprehend the letter's importance, despite belonging to the same royal institution. The two women didn't share many characteristics. Few royals had been able to connect with people in the same way as Diana, who was youthful, gorgeous, and loved by the media. Conversely, Anne was renowned for her straightforward demeanor and disinterest in receiving praise from the general people. Anne concentrated on duty and tradition, frequently seeming unconcerned with public opinion. While Diana enchanted audiences with her warmth and relatability, from the outset, their differences were evident. Diana was thrown into a world of strict customs and expectations when she became engaged to Prince Charles in 1981. Diana's arrival drew an extraordinary amount of media attention in contrast to previous royal brides. She enthralled the audience and the media followed her everywhere. However, her assimilation into royal life was less seamless within the confines of Buckingham Palace, and was possibly the least eager of the elder royals to interact with the future Princess of Wales. Anne had a reputation for approaching royal life with pragmatism. She had grown up in a time when royal engagements were conducted efficiently, rather than with individual flair, and duty took precedence over feeling. Anne's early life had been largely spent working behind the scenes, in contrast to her brothers who had garnered greater media attention because of their status as heirs to the throne. She was the first monarch to refuse to give her children royal titles, arguing that they should live as private individuals free from expectations. In sharp contrast to the public's growing fascination with Diana, she valued hard work over popular admiration. Their first encounters were anything from cordial in the months before her marriage to Prince Charles. Diana had attempted to establish a relationship with Anne. According to royal sources, she sought to grasp the customs that regulated royal life and to establish relationships within the family. However, Diana's attempts to connect were said to have sparked little interest from Anne, who had limited tolerance for what she saw as needless emotion. According to others, Anne thought Diana's attempts were merely a show to gain favor, rather than a true integration into the family. The distance between them did not change whether that was true or not. Over the years, their relationship became even more strained with the rise in popularity of the younger princess. Anne's mistrust of Diana grew. Diana's every action was watched, applauded, and occasionally condemned by the media, while Anne continued to carry out her royal duties, mainly out of the public eye. Diana was loved by the public to a degree that had never been seen in a royal. Through her humanitarian activities and her openness about her own hardships, she was able to emotionally connect with people. She represented empathy and transformation. And to many, she was more than just a princess. This degree of attentiveness felt superfluous to Anne her entire life. had demonstrated that royalty was about responsibility rather than celebrity. Diana received accolades for her candor, but Anne stuck to her conviction that the monarchy should uphold its customs without caving into popular sentiment. She had established herself as one of the most diligent royals, completing hundreds of engagements annually without complaining. In contrast to Diana, she kept a feeling of secrecy that aligned with the monarchy's traditional ideals by rarely discussing her personal hardships. According to reports, the topic of royal godparents was one of the incidents that caused them to grow more estranged. It was commonly believed that Anne would be selected as one of Prince William's godparents when he was born in 1992. Many thought the gesture would be returned because Prince Charles had been the godfather of his son, Peter Phillips. However, Diana and Charles made a different choice about their firstborn godparents, which caused some royal observers to take notice. Although Anne never addressed the issue in public, the rumors that she had taken it personally were only strengthened by her failure to attend Prince Harry's christening 2 years later. As Diana's marriage to Charles worsened, the friction between the two women grew increasingly noticeable by the early 1990s. The world could see the fissures in their relationship. Diana was becoming more and more alone in the royal family, and the media had started making assumptions about Charles's continued relationship with Camilla Parker B's. Once seen as the brightest star in the monarchy, she suddenly found herself at conflict with an organization that showed little interest in talking about feelings or personal hardships, according to reports, and had little empathy for Diana's predicament because she had long kept the customary expectations of royal duty. According to some, she thought Diana's public talks about her difficulties were detrimental to the monarchy, which deviated from the discretion that had long been required of members of the royal family. An important turning point was the BBC Panorama interview in 1995. Buckingham Palace was rocked by Diana's choice to talk candidly about her failing marriage, her mental health issues, and the demands of royal life. A senior royal disclosing such private information in a public interview was unprecedented. The royal family was reportedly quite unhappy, despite the fact that the people generally felt sympathy for Diana. The interview was viewed by Anne and many others in the institution as a violation of royal protocol. She had always felt that private affairs should be kept private, unlike Diana, and it was considered inappropriate to discuss royal issues in front of millions of people. Any chance of Diana and Anne having a deeper friendship had long since vanished by the time of Diana's untimely death in 1997. Without discussing Diana's troubles or influence in public, Anne carried on with her job as anticipated. The royal family avoided drawn-out debates on internal strife and instead maintained a solid position of going forward. However, Diana's influence persisted, influencing how the general people viewed the monarchy in ways that were impossible to overlook decades later. Diana's letter to Anne had come to light, posing fresh queries about what Diana could have wished to express before her life was abruptly ended. The fact that such a letter existed at all indicated that Diana had decided to contact Anne at some time in her life, in spite of their disagreements. What was it she had written, and why had it been so long hidden? Public curiosity and significant media coverage characterized Princess Diana's early years in the royal family. She was under tremendous pressure to live up to royal standards as a young bride entering one of the most closely watched organizations in the world. In contrast to other family members, Diana rose to fame in a short period of time, winning over millions of fans with her warmth and relatability, but her increasing popularity also put her at odds with the traditional principles that Princess Anne and other senior royals espoused. Anne had a reputation for keeping her private life private, and was well known for her strong work ethic and unflinching dedication to duty. She tended to take a direct approach to her royal duties, avoiding interviews with the media unless they were absolutely required. Diana's ascent to fame, on the other hand, was closely linked to the media. Her innate ability to engage the public, especially through her charity endeavors, made her a modernizing influence in the monarchy, which did not always sit well with the family's more conventional members, despite belonging to the same organization. Diana and Anne rarely interacted outside of official royal activities. Their limited interactions and body language during public events demonstrated how differently they approached royal life. Although Diana was frequently welcomed by large crowds and the media, Anne stayed committed to her duties and hardly showed signs of love or fondness in public. There were rumors of an underlying disconnect between them because of this difference in their public personalities. Diana's status within the royal family was further complicated by the obvious fissures in her marriage to Prince Charles by the middle of the 80s. She felt more alone as a result of the growing media attention to her private life. Although other family members followed tradition and etiquette to the letter, Diana was more outspoken about her feelings, which made her popular with the public and occasionally a contentious figure in the palace. Long a guarded and private person, Anne carried on with her royal response possibilities without becoming sucked into the media's depiction of Diana's hardships. Diana's philanthropic endeavors gained prominence as the decade went on. Her travels to hospitals, her work with AIDS patients, and her dedication to destigmatizing illnesses demonstrated a practical approach that struck a chord with people all around the world. Instead of continuing to play a strictly ceremonial role, she decided to interact personally with those impacted by the causes she supported. In contrast to many prior royals, her position as the people's princess, which distinguished her from other royal family members like Anne, was further enhanced by this direct interaction. In contrast, Anne continued to be one of the most diligent royals, performing hundreds of engagements annually, despite having a significant influence. Her activities were frequently overlooked in comparison to Diana's well-known humanitarian endeavors. Since Anne preferred working behind the scenes, most of her work garnered less media attention than Diana's, since she did not seek public recognition for her services. The public believed that the two ladies held somewhat distinct positions inside the monarchy as a result of their disparate levels of visibility. Diana's relationship with the royal family underwent a change in 1995 when she chose to openly discuss her difficulties in a public appearance. She talked about the challenges of her marriage and life in the institution. In an unusual BBC Panorama interview, although it had a lot of public support, the royal household saw it as a break from customary moderation like other senior royals. Anne stuck to her position of not disclosing personal information, which supported her view that royal life was more about duty than personal struggle. As media narratives continued to define Diana's period in the royal family, Anne remained a strong character who fulfilled her duties without getting involved in public disputes despite playing similar responsibilities in the monarchy. The two women pursued different careers and represented various facets of royal life. Their different legacies were further solidified by the contrast between Diana's gregarious attitude and Anne's more reserved manner. Diana resorted more and more to writing as a means of processing her experiences in the years preceding her death in 1997. She was able to express ideas through letters and private notes that were not always accessible to the public. In this setting, a letter to Anne surfaced, prompting speculation about what Diana would have wanted to say. Considering their differences, the fact that such a letter existed indicated an effort at contact that had not been recognized before. A change in Diana's personal and public life occurred during her later years. Although she was no longer formally a member of the royal family following her formal separation from Prince Charles in 1992 and their divorce in 1996, she continued to be a worldwide symbol. She accepted her newfound independence and became even more committed to humanity. Aryan causes, since she was no longer constrained by the same expectations, but this independence also meant being more vulnerable. She discovered that she was more vulnerable to the scrutiny and demands of public life as she lacked the official security and protections that came with being a senior. Royal Diana maintained her international prominence even after leaving the royal institution. Her charitable activity grew with a particular emphasis on child welfare, AIDS awareness, and landmine removal. One of her most memorable experiences as an advocate was her trip to Angola in early 1997, during which she passed through an area covered in live landmines. Her readiness to intervene in politically delicate and potentially hazardous circumstances demonstrated her dedication to changing the world frequently. By deviating from accepted royal customs, she started thinking more deeply about her experiences in the royal family. Around this time, she frequently utilized letters to communicate her feelings and thoughts.